What's up, everyone? It's two of the benchwarmers here, Aki and Andy, and today we're going to do our second rendition of the NFL mock draft for 2022. With the draft coming up in around 1 month from now, there's a lot of changes which has happened in the past month since we had our first mock draft. So we want to reflect on these changes by looking at our own opinion-based mock draft. There's been a bunch of trades. The offseason has happened the first couple weeks or so, and Tom Brady has retired and unretired. Without further ado, let's begin with this NFL mock draft. Before we start, however, I would like to mention one thing. This is purely our opinion. This is not exactly what we think will actually happen. As you know, there will be some players who you think will go much higher who actually won't. This is because we do not evaluate such players as highly as the NFL does. So without further ado, let's get started.
Yeah, so with the first overall pick, we have the Jags. And in our first draft, we had them taking Evan Neal. But at that time, they hadn't actually tagged offensive tackle Cam Robinson. But now that they have, it looks like they're probably not going to be taking a tackle at all. So I have them taking Aiden Hutchinson now. I think out of all of the edges, even though he may not have the highest upside, he definitely has the safest floor with that monster season he had just this past season. So he's definitely the safest pick for the Jags. They're getting a great player here at number 1.
At the second spot, we had the Detroit Lions. And in the previous mock, we had them going with Aiden Hutchinson. Now that he's off the board, we're going to have them actually going with someone who can elevate their safety position, their secondary, and their entire defense with Kyle Hamilton, arguably the smartest player in the entire draft. He did run a bit slow at the combine, but that's not reflective of his game speed. He is always in the right place at the right time, and it showed in Notre Dame over the past several years. I think that he can be an awesome pro on the next level and improve a struggling Lions defense for the future.
Next up, we have the Texans, and like the first few teams, this is a team that has a lot of needs that they need to improve on, and one of those is edge, and I think given that this class's main strength is edge, it is a great place for them to take Kayvon Thibodeaux. There have been some concerns with him just about like his injuries and the fact that he didn't show up for the Senior Bowl and stuff like that, but overall, I think his upside is just tremendous, and even though he's not the most refined, the Texans have a lot of time to kind of build a project player like him.
With the next pick at number 4, we have the Jets taking their first of 2 top 10 selections. And with this pick, they're going to go O-line, but not the O-line you think. We're going to have them taking Ike Ekwonu. Ike Ekwonu is the best run blocker in the entire class, and he showed up and showed out in the NFL Combine. Evan Neal opted out of several different activities at the Combine, and there's a bit of concern that he won't necessarily translate at the next level. He is a big guy, but Ike Ekwonu has a lot of proven stuff, and Evan Neal has been very solid at different positions, but we don't know exactly where he will fit in a Jets offense, which currently has a solid running back in Michael Carter.
Next up, we have the Giants at 5, and they're actually going to be the ones taking Evan Neal. I think when you look at the Giants, just their biggest need right now is offensive line. Both Daniel Jones and Saquon aren't getting any help, and Evan Neal is really the perfect player to help improve both their pass and run games. He's a monster of a man with tremendous upside, and I think he would be a great addition to the Giants O-line.
Next at the number 6 pick, we have the Carolina Panthers. And a lot of people have them taking a quarterback there because although they do have several quarterbacks in that locker room, none of them have shown potential or flashed the ability to be a long-term solution. However, we think that we should give Sam Darnold 1 more year and instead try to help him by improving an offensive line which struggled a lot by taking Charles Cross. Charles Cross, we have as being just a dynamic player on the O-line who can do several things. He can play several positions. He can transition to guard if necessary. But especially, I think he can be especially good on at left tackle. So when Christian McCaffrey inevitably plays, and we honestly hope that he is healthy for a good portion of the season, he has a place to run on the left side. So Sam Darnold's not taking blindside hits, and Christian McCaffrey can make full use of his talent.
Next up, we have the Giants again at pick number 7. And having gone offense with their first pick, I think they should go defense here. And as I said before, this draft is very strong for edge, so I think that's what they should do here. There's a few options, including Jermaine Johnson and Trevon Walker. I would have included Ajabu in that list too, but he recently tore his Achilles, which is really unfortunate, so that's hurting his draft stock a lot. I think the best player for the Giants here is Jermaine Johnson, just in terms of his fit in the Giants' 3-4 defense. I don't think you want a guy like Trevon Walker at 270 pounds playing outside linebacker. So Jermaine Johnson makes more sense for the Giants.
At pick 8, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who just traded away their franchise quarterback in Matt Ryan and got their replacement in the offseason. So with that, we want to help them as much as we can. So we're going to have them taking the first wide receiver, the first skill position off the board, if you will, with Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. Garrett Wilson is basically our wide receiver 1 for a couple of reasons. One, he's pretty much good to great at everything which he does on the field. He is fast. He has good hands. He's able to create yards after the catch. He has a really good burst and speed and is a pretty good route runner. And also he is a taller player and has good hands, length, everything. And because of his performance in all these metrics, I think he should be the first wide receiver off the board, and he can elevate the Falcons offense, which generally hasn't been the problem, but without Matt Ryan, they'll need to make sure that that offense still is cracking.
Next up, we have the Seahawks, and this is a team that really has a lot of weaknesses. I mean, even with Russell Wilson, they didn't perform very well last year, and now that they've lost him, it looks like they're going into a complete rebuild. There's a lot of options here, but I'm going to have them taking the 4th edge in this top 10, and that's Trevon Walker. Trevon Walker had an amazing combine. He showed that even though he is bigger, basically with the size of a defensive tackle, he has the speed and athletic ability to play on the edge. So he's really going to be a menace wherever he gets played on the defensive line, and he'll be a great addition to the Seahawks.
Now, closing out the top 10, we have the Jets' 2nd pick here. And this time we have them, instead of taking an offensive player, taking a defensive player. We're taking our first corner off the board, Ahmad Gardner, also called Sauce Gardner, from Cincinnati. Now, he is pretty much the prototypical corner. He has good size. He's able to guard everyone, and he was a primary reason why that Cincinnati defense was so strong, along with Kobe Bryant, on the defensive end, especially, and leading them to an undefeated regular season before going out in the first round of the NCAA football playoffs. And basically, what you have with Sauce Gardner is a person who hasn't allowed more than 15 yards in a single catch in his entire college career. A person who has one of the highest cornerback ratings of all time in college football. And we're just talking about a player who has great instincts, great size, and the ability to match up with any player at the next level. So I think the Jets getting someone like Ahmad Gardner would improve their defense, which has been terrible over the last several years.
Next up, we have the Washington Commanders at pick 11. And now that they have their quarterback in Carson Wentz, this is actually a very, very strong team in my opinion. They have a great defense, and the offense is looking definitely improved. But I think there's still one kind of hole on their offense, and that's a true wide receiver 2. They thought Curtis Samuel was going to be that guy, and he had a very disappointing season, including both injuries and bad performances even when he played. So I think the perfect wide receiver 2 for them would be Drake London, because he really complements Terry McLaurin's skill set well. McLaurin is more of like a shifty route runner who's not that big, but Drake London is 6'5". He's going to be catching everything, and he also has great run after catch ability. So it's a great 1-2 punch there for the Commanders.
Now we move on to the 12th pick. That's Minnesota Vikings, in a division which, to their disappointment, kept Aaron Rodgers, even though all signs pointed that he was going to leave. They still need a way to be good on the defensive front. And there's 2 options there, either go into the secondary or go into the defensive line. And we have them taking Jordan Davis, another combine monster, another guy from Georgia, from that awesome defense which won the national championship. Jordan Davis is a big guy who can run up the middle and has incredible speed for someone at his size. He tore it up at the combine, probably was one of the most talked about players there. And I truly think that his talent can transcend to the next level. So that puts pressure on quarterbacks in that division and also stops the run. So I think Jordan Davis is a very good player to have, and the Vikings would be really fortunate to have him at 12.
Next up at 13, we have the Texans picking again, and we have them going with Derek Stingley. So they already went with a defensive player before, and now they're adding yet another piece to their struggling defense. And interestingly enough, Derek Stingley was actually a player that used to get mocked to the Texans at the 3rd pick. So he's a player that's fallen down quite a bit due to some injury concerns and the fact that he didn't really play much the past year. But I think the potential that he showed in his freshman and sophomore years were enough for him to still be a very, very valuable prospect in this class. So I think the Texans should take him here at 13.
Up next at pick 14, we have the Ravens taking another Georgia defender. Yes, we're talking about Devante White, another player who might have gotten a bit overshadowed by Jordan Davis and Trevon Walker, but still did amazing at the combine. This is a very similar situation to the Vikings. There's some very good quarterbacks in that division, and having some help on that D-line puts more pressure on them, puts more pressure on the run game, especially for teams like the Browns. And I think just having a player like Devante White who can transition to anywhere on the line, and even sometimes play as a linebacker, can show that the Baltimore defensive front is as good as always.
Next at 15, we have the first of the Eagles' 3 picks in this first round. They had a decent season last year, barely making it to the playoffs, but one of their biggest holes was at linebacker, and I have them filling that hole with Devin Lloyd. It was a really tough decision picking between Lloyd and Nakobe Dean, but I think just the fact that Nakobe Dean's a little bit undersized gives Devin Lloyd, while Devin Lloyd is a more prototypical prospect at linebacker, I think it gives Lloyd the slight edge for the Eagles.
And from the Eagles, we go to a brand new team. No, the same team, the Eagles, again at pick 16. Now, since they have addressed the defensive side with an amazing linebacker who can command that defense, let's go to the offensive side and give Jalen Hurts another weapon to throw to. We're talking about Jamison Williams from Alabama. Although he is going to be out likely for the first several weeks of the season, if not the entire season, Jamison Williams was the clear consensus wide receiver 1 before his Achilles injury in the national championship. And Jamison Williams matched up against the best players, the best corners from everyone, and made them look silly. Jamison Williams is extremely fast, has really good route running, great hands, pretty much everything you want in a wide receiver. It's just questions about, will his mobility be the same? Will he have an injury history? Will he be able to make those quick, sharp cuts anymore after his injury? But I still think that he's really good, and Jalen Hurts would definitely benefit from an Alabama wide receiver who I'm not sure if he actually had the opportunity to play with at all, but certainly they both were at Alabama at some point.
Next up at the 17th pick, we have the Chargers, and this is a team that has a lot of talent. Obviously, they signed Khalil Mack in the offseason, making their defense slightly better, so I think they should go with an offensive pick here. We saw how the Chargers really struggled last year with Brian Bulaga being injured, and now that he's off the team completely, they definitely need to replace him, and Trevor Penning is the perfect player to do so. He is a mountain of a man, and he'll definitely do a great job pass blocking on that right side across from Rashawn Slater.
Now with the 18th pick, we have a very interesting team in the New Orleans Saints. Now, the New Orleans Saints are a really solid team. They re-signed Jameis Winston to be their quarterback this season, and their defense is always extremely good. They did lose a couple of pieces in the offseason, including their star left tackle, but I think that they do need an offensive weapon, especially at wide receiver, considering Michael Thomas's unreliability and the sheer lack of receivers they have elsewhere. Thus, we have our second Ohio State wide receiver, one of my personal favorite players from this draft, Chris Olave. Chris Olave has risen up the rankings in the past several weeks because of his elite speed, his elite route running, and overall just being an amazing player. He is probably has the best route running in the entire draft, I'd say. And he's been that guy who can catch red zone touchdowns. He had more touchdowns than Garrett Wilson this season and last season. And that sort of shows what kind of player he is. He is a good red zone threat. And so Jameis Winston sometimes has trouble trying to find the right player in the end zone at the right time. And often that results in interceptions. And the New Orleans Saints want to make their offense successful in scoring points all the time. They should probably not rely on just Will Lutz and throw to Chris Olave.
Yeah, next up we have the Eagles again for their last pick of this first round, and we have them taking cornerback Trent McDuffie. Darius Slay has come into the Eagles and been a pretty good player for them, but they really just lack any strength in the secondary besides him. So I think getting a very solid cornerback too to further improve that defense that was okay but not where it needed to be last year is what the Eagles need to do here at 19.
Now we move on to the 20th pick, the first playoff team from the AFC, that is the Steelers. And with the retirement of Ben Roethlisberger, they replaced him. I think that they have a good plethora of wide receivers. I think the thing which they need to help is their run game. They were giving Najee Harris up to 25 plus carries every game almost. And although Najee is very talented, he was a first round pick last year, the offensive line severely underperformed, giving both Ben Roethlisberger and Najee Harris not some great performances. Like I think Najee Harris's yards per carry was very low. It was in the threes, I think. And that just shows that they need help on that offensive line. So in order to help that, take a big man, Tyler Linderbaum, for those interior positions. I think just having someone like Tyler Linderbaum, who showed at Iowa that he can be really good in all facets of the game, that just would help the Steelers tremendously in the run game, and they can carry it. You give it to Najee Harris, and maybe he turns to a Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry even, because Najee Harris, I believe, is still very talented.
Next up, we have the Patriots at 21. And this is a team that went from having one of the best cornerback duos in the league just a few years ago, or just last year actually, with Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson, to having no cornerbacks at all, losing both in a trade or just in the offseason. And that leaves them with the very big need for cornerback now in the draft, and I have them taking Andrew Booth Jr. here. He's a great player, had a very good season last year and showed that he could excel in both man and zone coverage. So given that the Patriots actually have a pretty strong team besides corner, this definitely is the obvious pick for them.
Now we move to pick 22, and we have the Packers here. This is actually a pick they acquired from the Devante Adams trade. And although Aaron Rodgers is surely sad that to see his number one wide receiving option go, and probably the best wide receiver in the entire league over the past several seasons, he's going to get his replacement here, and that is going to be Treylon Burke from Arkansas. Treylon Burke is kind of a wild card here. He's had some really great performances in college. His quarterback play wasn't the best, but I think it really showed versus in the Alabama game. He's a big wide receiver, and versus some very good cornerbacks who probably will make it to the NFL in the next couple of years. He had close to 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And this is an Arkansas offense, which is definitely not comparable to an Alabama defense. So I think that game, along with other measurable factors about Treylon Burke, he ran pretty fast the combine. He has good hands. He has good route running. I think that would be very good as a potential replacement for Devante Adams. So Aaron Rodgers can throw to him, and maybe he'll have some rookie struggles, but potentially in the long term, Devante Adams is a second-round pick. Maybe a first-round pick could be even better.
Next up, we have the Cardinals here at 23, and I think their main needs lie on the defensive side of the ball. I think they would like to take a cornerback here just due to their struggles with the secondary last year. With the top 4 corners off the board, I think it would be a little bit of a reach to take someone like Raji Mccreery, even though he is a very talented guy himself. So instead, I think they should take George Karlaftis, the edge rusher out of Purdue. I think this pass rush has not really been the same as it was when they had Hassan Reddick a few years ago, and George Karlaftis can be a great replacement. He's arguably the most powerful pass rusher in the draft, so he would complement J.J. Watt very well. They would make a very powerful duo. So overall, I think they really need edge, and Karlaftis would be the man for them.
Next, at pick 24, we have the Dallas Cowboys after an unfortunate end to their season at the hands of my 49ers. We have them replacing an aging offensive line unit and helping that with the selection of Kenyan Green from Texas A&M. Kenyan Green is your prototypical run blocker. He is really solid in all facets of that game. He has a really wide base. He's able to push and manhandle the defensive line. He has that mean streak in him that once he gets a defensive line, he's going to push him down. That was there in several plays, and he's a fun player to watch in the run blocking scheme. And although we've had several offensive tackles taken above him, I think that he is still a very good player and will have a long career with the Dallas Cowboys.
Next up, we have the Bills, and this is a very strong team, made it very far in the playoffs last year. And there are not really that many needs for them, but I think just one thing is offensive line. It's not a terrible unit, but I think they would do very well to just give more protection to one of the best quarterbacks in the league, who definitely deserves good protection. So I'm going to have them taking the second offensive guard in a row here, and that is Zion Johnson. I'd say even though he doesn't have as crazy athletic ability as Kenyan Green, he has better technique at this point, especially in pass blocking, and that will give this pass-heavy offense exactly what they need.
At 26, we have the Tennessee Titans, another playoff team, another unfortunate early exit as a 1 seed, in fact, to the 4 seed Cincinnati Bengals. And so to improve, there might be some people calling for maybe, hey, let's get a replace for Ryan Tannehill, but I'll put faith in him for one more year, especially with the trade for Robert Woods from the LA Rams. Him plus AJ Brown is definitely a very good receiver duo to throw to, along with having Derrick Henry on the team, who is coming off an injury and had an underwhelming performance in the playoffs, but I think he'll be back to 100% this season. So instead, I'll go to the defensive side. That's always consistently been their issue. They've had some issues, and I think that they need some guy to step up and be the leader of the defense, much like Micah Parsons did for the Dallas Cowboys. I have them taking Georgia linebacker Nakobe Dean, who was that guy on the amazing Georgia defense that won the national championship. I think having him at this high of a pick, at this pick at 26, is an absolute steal for the Titans, especially considering that a lot of teams above him could use him too. But I think Nakobe Dean on the Titans could make that defense pop, and then that plus an amazing offensive output could really make this Titans team go far.
Next up at 27, we have the Bucs. They had quite a scary offseason so far with Tom Brady retiring, but then deciding to come back. And I think basically the main need for this team is cornerback. We saw last year their defense was kind of average because their run defense was unbelievable and their pass defense was unbelievably terrible. So I think they really need a cornerback here, and I have them taking Roger Mccreery out of Auburn. He is coming off an amazing season. He does everything very well, including both man coverage and zone coverage. And even in the run game, he shows a lot of spirit in kind of getting to the running back and making a tackle. So he does everything you could possibly want from a corner, and I think that's why the Bucs should take him here.
With the next pick, we have the Packers once again with their actual first-round pick, their second first-round pick here. And they're taking Jahan Dotson, another wide receiver. And let me explain this pick. I know they already took a wide receiver already in Treylon Burke, but I think this wide receiving core is really, really bad. Right now, the only wide receivers they have are Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard, and Amari Rodgers. And after the season, the first two players I mentioned, contracts are up. So their wide receiving core is in serious need of improvement. So I really do think they need to spend both their first round picks on solid wide receivers in a draft where wide receiver is a really good position. We don't know about next year, the year after. We don't know how long Aaron Rodgers is going to be in his prime. So while it's happening, they should probably have two very good wide receivers, especially if one doesn't pan out. Treylon Burke is a risky pick, and so is Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson can play fast and can run routes well. He has not faced the best competition in the world, but he certainly showed out at the combine and put himself above several other players who were projected above him. I think he has moved up a lot, and I think his production speaks for itself. I think that he can be a consistent guy. I don't ever see him as a number one wide receiving option, but I certainly do see him as a really solid wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 on a championship team.
Next up, we have the Chiefs, who have had quite a tumultuous offseason, losing Tyrann Mathieu in free agency, and then also with trading away Tyreek Hill. So this is actually the first of their 2 picks in the first round, because they got a first round from that Tyreek Hill trade. And I have them taking a replacement for Tyrann Mathieu, and that is Daxton Hill. Daxton Hill is literally the same player as Tyrann Mathieu. He is a free safety who also has the ability to play strong safety and cornerback. He just has that incredible versatility. So, I mean, even though I don't think he's as talented as Tyrann Mathieu yet, he does have all the skills necessary to fill that role that is really a big need for the Chiefs now, because the other safety position is also pretty terrible. So overall, safety is just the biggest need for them, and Daxton Hill is the perfect replacement.
At pick 30, we have the Chiefs again. And this is going to be a little bit of a risk that they're going to take here. They're going to draft a wide receiver to replace Tyreek Hill. And what better to have replacement for Tyreek Hill than a taller Tyreek Hill? Yes, I'm talking about Christian Watson from North Dakota State. He is 6'5", 208, and ran a 4.3. That just shows you what kind of player he is. Yes, he played at the FCS level, North Dakota State. But I guess the success of players such as Cooper Kupp, who didn't come from the greatest of colleges in the world, shows that with the right quarterback, any player, if he plays well, can succeed in the NFL. I think that if you have a guy like Christian Watson, who has all the measurables, all the techniques in the world, he can have that flat speed like Tyreek Hill, and he has the size to catch over defenders that Tyreek Hill couldn't do. He also might need to improve in the route running department and never has had a season in college of over 1,000 yards. But I surely think with Patrick Mahomes, anything is possible. And I think that he will do extremely well in the NFL. However, he is a boomer bust prospect, but this is their second pick in the first round. And worst case scenario, they still have Mecole Hardman.
And with the penultimate pick of this first round, we have the Bengals, who lost in the Super Bowl. So pretty tough for them, but a great season overall. I really wanted to take a cornerback here, namely Kaiir Elam, but that is mainly just because of my bias against Eli Apple. Like, I really detest Eli Apple. Like, he's like probably my least favorite player in the NFL. But even though I really hate Eli Apple, I think taking Kaiir Elam is not the objectively best decision. I have to listen to my brain here, not my heart. So I think what they really need to do is draft an offensive lineman, because Joe Burrow was getting sacked like crazy last season. So the best player available for them here is Bernard Raymond. This is a player who's kind of new to football, coming from Germany, but he has the size, the athleticism, and he's learned the skills fairly quickly. So even though he is somewhat older, he's actually a pretty refined prospect, and he has the athleticism necessary to protect Joe Burrow.
And with the final pick of the first round, we have the Lions finally taking a quarterback with Malik Willis. Now, before I go into the explanation, yes, we have our first quarterback taken at number 32. Once again, I'd like to preface this by saying that this is what we think with our heads, not with what we actually think the NFL draft is going to happen. I think in reality, there's going to be some team who will reach for a quarterback. We are under the impression that there's not a single quarterback in this year's draft class who is worthy of a pick higher than the end of the first round. Now, will that happen? No, there will be quarterbacks selected in the first 15 picks. But in reality, we think that if we're doing purely off the team's best fit and team needs and what will improve them most in the short and long run, we think that the best opportunity for the first quarterback to be taken off the board is here at pick 32. Now, Malik Willis does have to sit for a little bit, but when he gets to start, I think he might start a bit rough, but he can turn into a Lamar Jackson type of player with a cannon of an arm. So Malik Willis is relatively fast. He runs a 4.445. He had around 800 to 1,000 rushing yards both of his last couple seasons at Liberty, and he had an amazing combine where he showed off his ability to throw the football extremely well and extremely accurately. And I think that through a multitude of reasons, I think that he will succeed at the next level. You need a mobile quarterback, and with a growing Detroit Lions team, which has amazing wide receivers already, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I honestly think can be a 1,000-yard plus receiver for like the next 5 to 10 years. I think that having a player with the mobile skills of Malik Willis and also the throwing skills can help the Lions, and he can be the franchise quarterback of their future.
Yeah, so that wraps it up for our first round mock draft. Definitely a few hot takes in there, so let us know what you think in the comments below, whether you agree or disagree with our picks. If you liked this video, remember to like. If you didn't, let us know why in the comments below so we can change that for the future. This is the Benchwarmers, and we're signing out. See ya!